for Spiritual Initiation by Zachary F. Lansdowne. Introduction. In 1922, Alice A. Bailey published 14 symbolic rules for spiritual initiation, with only a very limited and fragmentary explanation. The purpose of this book is to clarify those rules and give a complete explanation, showing that each rule has both an outer and an inner meaning. The outer interpretation embodies a character building or purificatory objective that has been proclaimed by all of the great religions down through the centuries. The inner interpretation embodies an injunction on meditation that the aspirant, or for initiation, needs to study and obey. Thus, each rule gives instruction for the two phases in every aspirant's life: the outer life of practice and the inner life of concentration, or the outer ability to express holy living and the inner ability to contact the higher self. It may be helpful to distinguish between laws, commands, and rules. The laws of nature, such as the law of gravity or the laws of thermodynamics, govern and control everything that happens in time and space. These laws cannot be avoided or denied. If they are broken, infringed, or evaded, they carry their own penalty within themselves. Commands are orders issued by people in authority who believe they are in a position to dominate and enforce their orders. For instance, the obligations to pay taxes and report for military duty are commands that are often avoided and ignored. Rules are the result of age-long experience and do not assume the form of either laws or commands. When recognized by those for whom they exist, rules evoke a prompt, intuitive response. They need to no enforcement but are voluntarily accepted with the belief that they provide the conditions needed for success. This book examines a set of rules that provide instructions for progressing on a spiritual path. In theosophy, the spiritual path is divided into several distinct segments. The first segment is called the path of probation. Every aspirant starts to travel on this segment after acknowledging that an inner conflict exists between the personality, or lower self, and the soul, or higher self. The Apostle Paul referred to this conflict when he wrote, "For what I would, that do I not, but what I hate, that do I." Because of this inner conflict, the aspirant begins to see the need for disciplining the personality and invoking the intuitive voice of the soul for guidance. The path of probation ends with an expansion of consciousness that is called the first spiritual initiation. The second segment is called the path of discipleship. It commences with the first initiation, continues through the second initiation, and ends with the third initiation. The third segment is called the path of initiation. It starts with the third initiation and continues through still higher initiation. Let us consider the meaning of these ideas in more detail. The word initiation signifies entrance into something. Spiritual initiation refers to entrance into the spiritual life, or into a fresh stage in that life, and can be characterized as an expansion of consciousness during which one becomes aware that a certain range of subjective knowledge is one's own. It refers to a moment in which the spiritual self within the personality becomes aware of being the soul, with soul powers, soul relationships, and soul purpose. And it is a step out of the human kingdom of nature into a superhuman one. The concept of dividing the spiritual path into distinct stages can be found outside theosophy. For instance, it is possible to relate each spiritual initiation to a specific stage of development in Christian mysticism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and yoga. Also, the mysteries of spiritual initiation can be found within the symbolic numbers, rituals, and words of Masonic ceremonies. When correctly presented and rightly interpreted, those ceremonies provide a teaching needed to pass from darkness to light, from the unreal to the real, and from death to immortality. However, Masonic ceremonies are difficult to interpret because they are based on a structure of Hebrew names and nomenclature that are thousands of years old and long out of date. What is the significance of the rules for spiritual initiation discussed here? These rules, when rightly interpreted, provide a concrete statement of the intuitive guidance that is progressively received on the spiritual path. If we are not yet ready for a particular rule, then we can receive from it only a hint of the technique to which we will later be exposed. If we are ready for the rule, which means that we recognize it as an injunction needing to be obeyed, then we can voluntarily apply it to our own lives. Or if we have already passed beyond a particular rule, we may simply remark, "This I have known." There are 14 rules, forming two different sequences of 7 rules. According to our interpretation, the first sequence provides elementary instructions for the path of probation, and the second sequence provides advanced instructions for the path of discipleship. These two sequences can be thought of as having a linear relationship. After we master the elementary rules, we are guided to begin the advanced rules. Because each rule in the second sequence provides a higher meaning of the corresponding rule in the first sequence, these two sequences show that the spiritual path forms a spiral rather than a straight line. Spiritual development can be likened to climbing a mountain, and a spiritual path to a spiral formed around the outside of the mountain. Because each rule is written in a symbolic way, it can be interpreted as providing two different injunctions. One, describing a character building or purificatory objective, and one describing a stage in the process of meditation. Thus, these rules actually yield 4 different sequences of training. Based on the first 7 rules, Chapter 1 provides elementary instructions for character building, and Chapter 2 provides elementary instructions for meditation. Based on the last 7 rules, Chapter 3 provides advanced instructions for character building, and Chapter 4 provides advanced instructions for meditation. In Theosophy, a ray is defined as a particular quality of energy, and altogether 7 different rays are described. In recent years, there has been considerable interest in the 7 rays, and a number of authors have investigated the relationships existing between the rays and such topics as philosophy, psychology, yoga, healing, and even foreign affairs. In each 7-fold sequence of instruction for the paths of probation and discipleship, as well as for character building and meditation, each rule carries the specific quality associated with the corresponding ray, as shown in Chapter 5. Consequently, Bailey's rules for spiritual initiation are extraordinary. They provide concrete formulations of the intuitive guidance that is progressively received on the spiritual path, characterizations of the spiral nature of that guidance, the similarities and differences between the paths of probation and discipleship, the interrelationship between character building and meditation, and the connection between the process of initiation and the seven rays. Bailey published these rules in the first of a series of about 20 books that she wrote over a 30-year period. The rules actually anticipated her entire canon of teaching because the clues needed for understanding them are scattered throughout all her books. In the chapters that follow, comprehensive sets of notes identify where the various aspects of each rule are discussed in those books.